Well, let me move us on to the next kind of section of this webinar, and it's a meaningful part of the private resource mobilization thinking, and that's the 3-year plan. And I referred earlier to the fact that it will ramp up over time, and we will learn as we go. But let me review the 3-year plan as we have conceived of it, and then ask you to indicate your general level of support and ways that it might be strengthened. Year 1 of the plan that we've conceived of focuses on the establishment of an operational infrastructure that builds on the work of the institutional home team that we ultimately select. The initial focus is, 1, to establish a development office and a process, including governance, that will have an oversight provided by a program oversight committee that's composed of internal and external stakeholders. Secondly, that Year 1 finalizes a development plan that will be complete with an operational structure and implementation strategies. Third, it will engage the cooperative extension system in the establishment of a baseline startup budget from which we'll fully launch the program. And finally, it will seek 1 or more what I'm calling inaugural donors, as supported by the polling at the National Extension Directors and Administrators meeting. The task force currently sees work in Year 1 as possible with an investment from existing ECOP funds, the amount to be determined. But Year 1, as you can clearly see, is a startup year where we get our feet on the ground, partnerships and processes identified. During Year 2, we'll require a substantial commitment of the system. Based upon success in Year 1 and identification of an institutional home, we anticipate the hiring of a part or a full-time Chief Advancement Officer. ECOP will need to identify a sum of funds to be determined that will be used for this leadership position that would be anticipated to be administered within employment and supervision of the institutional home, whoever that comes to be. Now, a systematic database of prospects will also be needed, and we believe Year 2 is the time that that would be produced, or at least begun in a meaningful way. Prospects would be potential donors on which we would focus and advance this project. Although the following will be done on a continuing basis, we believe that a 4-phase approach is envisioned for developing this prospect list that include things like identification of prospects, research about their priorities and giving histories, tracking them over time, and finally stewardship, the development and maintenance of relationships. By Year 3, it's envisioned that we have a fully developed fundraising plan. It's well underway with top donor prospects, researched, cultivated, and provided, who are providing a significant level of sponsorship. Directors and administrators by Year 3 should know enough and have enough confidence in this system to have opted in at some level of ongoing support. And importantly, shared information about this with our field personnel nationwide so that we can use our thousands of employees as mini fund development officers. That's my word, it's not in the task force report. We see a strong collaborative relationship among PRM partners. For example, the Foundation for Food and Agricultural Research that Lila called our attention to, the National 4-H Council, E-Extension, ECOP, EPLU, relevant professional organizations, and industry. Lastly, we believe success will only be apparent and long-term if we've established the kind of partnerships with a few leading corporations or foundations such as Walmart, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation that's already underway, many of us know, W.K. Kellogg, and others. Very good, thank you. And I see that reassuringly, a very significant majority either agree or strongly agree. The next part of your collective input is should be shared on your screen. It asks a question of how might we consider strengthening this 3-year plan. So it's a nice opportunity to have a chat conversation, and I think we've got time, Mark, to engage in whatever people want to talk about.
Sure, and if folks, yeah, again, if you'll do that in chat.
And I see we've got an initial, in my mind, very important question, and it's all around how this system-wide development effort will go about coordinating and communicating with the home state of CES, where there is an extension service with existing donors in order to prevent confusion between the national effort and local development activities involving the same donor. That may be one of the most critical observations and questions that we have addressed. And while we don't have the mechanism completely defined, the only way that this national coordinated effort can and will go forward is if we are respectful of and know where donors are connected to our kind of home institutions, one or more, or the national effort, and to distinguish between the two. But I'm not able at this moment to answer precisely when and how that communication and coordination will happen. Well, not seeing other messages coming in, unless you can tell it, Mark, I'm inclined to kind of accept this little segment as fairly strong endorsement of our 3-year plan, knowing that there's a lot of work to do inside of it. Okay, Rich Bonanno echoes the earlier comment about let's be clear that we recognize the potential conflict with state efforts and guard against that as we move towards implementation. Thank you, Rich.